The Last Stand. The colony of New Hope was burning. Pillars of oily smoke twisted into the sky from the smoldering ruins of habitation domes and supply depots. In the distance, the staccato bark of particle beam weapons and the dull crump of explosions marked the front line where the 126th Marine Division fought to hold back the relentless advance of the Zorak invaders. Major Eli Santos ducked instinctively as an enemy drone flashed overhead, strafing his position with plasma fire. All around him, his Marines were dug in behind rubble and makeshift barricades, their weapons fitting deadly silver needles at the hulking shapes of the aliens as they surged forward. It was a nightmare come to life. New Hope had been a peaceful farming colony, a sleepy backwater unprepared for war. Then the Zorak had arrived, an implacable blue tide of chitin and laser fire, leaving only death and destruction in their wake. Major Santos' comm crackled to life. The last transport is loaded and lifting off. It's all on you now. Hold the line until we're clear. Understood, Santos replied through gritted teeth, praying the battered colonial defenses would hold just a little longer. He switched to the platoon freak. You heard him, Marines, he roared. We stand until the end. Not one step back. A ragged cheer went up from the weary soldiers, followed by a redoubling of their efforts. Gauss rifles, flamers, and missile launchers dueled with crystalline Zorak energy weapons in a brutal exchange. Santos added his own fire to the fusillade, scything down a pair of screeching drones. But he could see it wasn't enough. A vast host of fresh alien warriors was pouring over the ridge, weapons glowing with deadly intent. Unlikely allies. Suddenly, a new sound filled the smoke-stained sky, a deep, resonant humming that built rapidly to a vibrating crescendo. Brilliant beams of scintillating light arced down from above, vaporizing the front ranks of the Zorak horde. Everywhere Marines looked up in astonishment as a flight of sleek, silver-hulled craft sliced through the air, energy weapons laying waste to the invaders. Ships of no human design. This is Commander Janlo of the Veltheri Compact. A strong, flanging voice crackled across the comms. We come in peace to aid you against the Zorak. Hold fast. Row wing. Commencing strafing run. The strange ships swooped low, striking the aliens with lightning-like flashes. Their arrival stunned the Zorak, who milled about in temporary confusion, their advance faltering. Cheers erupted from the human defenses as a detachment of tall, slender beings materialized out of beams of light, resplendent in flowing cloaks and ornate armor. They took up position alongside the beleaguered Marines, elegant weapons thrumming. Major Santos found himself face to face with the lead alien, a noble-featured being with wise, liquid eyes. Commander Janlo, I presume, he said. Your timing is impeccable, though I admit this is unexpected. Your people's distress call reached us, and the Compact does not abide such cruelty. Janlo replied solemnly. We will fight the Zorak at your side. Your courage and spirit are an inspiration. Now come, let us show them the true strength of unity. Bolstered by their unexpected allies, the human defenders surged forward with a parade ground roar of Oorah, Veltheri, and Marine fighting side by side. The Zorak line buckled, then broke, the aliens fleeing back under the ferocious onslaught. The colony ship thundered overhead and off to safety, bringing a cheer to Santos' lips. The line had held. New Hope endured. The tide turns. Far above the embattled colony, a flash of distorted light heralded the arrival of the Earth fleet. Dozens of warships, led by the massive battle carrier Indomitable, tore out of warp, their hulls bristling with weapons. On the bridge of the flagship, Admiral Cynthia Petrov clenched an armored fist as the tactical display lit up with red Zorak markers. All ships, weapons free. She snapped. Engage the enemy. Raptors and Thunderbolts clear for launch. Let's show these Zorak bastards what happens when they dare spill human blood. The fleet split into attack wings and dove into battle, missiles, and beam weapons reaching out to ravage the alien ships. Fighters spilled from launch bays and spiraled into vicious dogfights with clouds of drones. On the main screen, the Zorak command carrier loomed into view, a hideous profusion of organic curves and pulsing weapons. Petrov bared her teeth in a feral smile. Helm, set intercept course. Ready the Nova Lance. In the ruins of New Hope below, Major Santos watched in awe as the night lit up with the hellish fury of orbital bombardment. The Marines and their Veltheri allies pressed their attack, empowered by the knowledge that the cavalry had arrived. Santos found himself back-to-back with Janlo, the two cutting down Zorak warriors in a storm of steel and light. "Your people are mighty indeed," the alien commander said, his voice resonant with admiration. "Such spirit, such tenacity. The Zorak cannot stand before it." "We're full of surprises," Santos replied with a fierce grin, slamming a new power cell into his rifle. "And we don't take too kindly to bullies out here. What say we kick these blue bastards off our planet?" Janlo threw his head back and trilled a ululating war cry. As one, Veltheri and humans surged forward, a united tip of the spear, an implacable force. The Zorak fell back in disarray under the ferocious assault, their lines shattering. Above, the alien command ship broke apart in a titanic fireball as the Indomitable's lance gutted it stem to stern. The tide had turned. The invaders were in full rout. As cheers of victory rang out across the shattered colony, a wild thought crossed Santos' mind. The Zorak had no idea what they had started. No idea at all. Above and beyond, the rout of the Zorak had bought the colony precious time. But Major Santos knew it was only a reprieve. Orbital scans showed a massive enemy staging base on New Hope's largest moon, no doubt where the aliens were marshaling their forces for a second, obliterating assault. It had to be destroyed, no matter the cost. "Saddle up, Marines," Santos called out to his soldiers as they prepped weapons and checked gear in the bustling forward camp. "We're taking this fight to the Zorak. The ugly bastards have a little hideout that needs demolishing, and I don't remember sending them a housewarming gift." The assembled soldiers cheered, their morale high after their hard-fought victory alongside the Veltheri. Speaking of their new allies, Santos turned as Janlo approached, his ornate armor gleaming. "I know what you intend, Major," the alien said in his resonant tones, "and I have seen the scans too. My warriors will fight at your side once more. The Zorak will learn that their cruelty has made them only enemies today." Santos clasped arms with Janlo, a gesture of unity. "Glad to have you," he said sincerely. "Now let's go introduce the Zorak to a combined human/Veltheri ass-kicking they won't soon forget." Dropships full of Marines and their alien allies tore through the sky, racing towards the distant moon base. Anti-aircraft fire reached up to meet them, filling the void with deadly energies. Santos gripped his harness and bellowed encouragement as the pilot jinked and wove. There was a thunderous impact, and the ship lurched, a near miss. Then suddenly they were down, hitting the ground hard, ramps slamming open to disgorge a flood of determined warriors into the fray. The Zorak were waiting for them. The alien base was a bristling fortress of gun emplacements and armored carapace, but the humans and Veltheri threw themselves forward with reckless abandon, heedless of the ravening hell of enemy fire. Santos was a man possessed, his rifle bucking as he put down alien after shrieking alien. Janlo was a blur at his side, twin blades flashing in an intricate dance of death. They blasted and carved a path into the heart of the base, demo charges reducing structure after structure to rubble. The Zorak hurled themselves into the fight with hideous screeches, only to be scythed down by the dozens. The ground grew slick with ichor and blood. Finally, they'd reached the main reactors, pulsing with baleful energies. Marines fanned out, setting charges, as Janlo and his warriors held off a tide of counterattacking aliens. Charges set, Santos roared over the din of battle. 2 minutes. Back to the extraction point. Move. The humans fell back, leapfrogging by squads, covering each other. But a phalanx of hulking Zorak elites rose up to block their escape, hissing with venomous hatred. "I'll hold them," Lieutenant Carver yelled, unhooking a bandolier of grenades. "Get our people out, Major." "Carver, no," Santos screamed, but the junior officer was already charging, a defiant roar on his lips as he unloaded into the aliens. A moment later, the grenades detonated in an eruption of flame and shrapnel, immolating the lieutenant and the Zorak. The self-sacrifice brought tears to Santos' eyes, even as he waved the rest of the soldiers past. The kid had given his all for the Corp, for humanity. He wouldn't be forgotten. The dropships lifted off in a storm of fire, Marine door gunners hosing the Zorak with streams of tracers. Behind them, the moon base erupted into a miniature sun as the charges went off, utterly devastating the aliens' ability to stage further attacks. The day had been won, but the cost had been high. As he slumped back in his acceleration chair, Santos silently promised he would see Carver's killer brought to justice. The Zorak would pay. Humanity would make sure of it. The final push. With their critical staging base reduced to glowing slag, the Zorak invaders fell into disarray on the surface of New Hope. Marine forces and their Velthari allies surged out of their fortified positions in every sector, tearing into the demoralized aliens like wolves among sheep. The coalition's objective was clear: seize the colony capital and drive the Zorak off-world once and for all. Major Santos rode the lead mammoth siege tank as the human armored column rumbled through the blasted wastelands, the massive vehicle's engines roaring like the V2Ls of some apocalyptic beast. Beside the column, Velthari grav tanks glided with eerie silence, their elegant curves a stark contrast to the brutish human designs. Together, they made an unstoppable vanguard. As they neared the colony capital, Santos called a halt, the tanks grinding to a stop amidst choking clouds of dust. Through his magnoculars, he could see the great arcology spire thrusting up into the sky, a defiant fist of human engineering. But its graceful lines were marred by alien battle scarring and the ugly organic growth of Zorak biomachinery. They had made it their final bastion. "All units, form up," Santos ordered over the comm. "Velthari armor will lead the assault. The 89th Armored will follow in support. 126th Marines will deploy on the flanks and suppress enemy hardpoints, and the 414th Artillery will stand by to drop the hammer as called in." "Understood." A chorus of affirmatives replied. Santos switched over to Jeanlot's channel. "You ready for this final dance, my friend?" The Velthari commander's face appeared on the screen, elegant features set with determination. "We are, Major. The Zorak have much to answer for. They will find no mercy here, for they have shown none. I am honored to fight alongside you and yours in this last great struggle. For New Hope and Terra. For New Hope and Terra." Santos echoed fiercely. "All units, advance." The human and Velthari forces swept forward like an inexorable tide, all weapons blazing. Artillery shells, tank blasts, and energy beams fell among the Zorak like the wrath of an angry god. Return fire stitched the attackers' ranks, destroying man and machine alike in bright fireballs. But the coalition would not be denied. Inch by blood-soaked inch, they ground the aliens down, blasting them out of their fortifications with determined fury. In the thick of the fighting, Major Santos led from the front, his power armor painted with ichor and carbon scoring. All around him, Marines, tankers, and Velthari gave their all, and all too many made the ultimate sacrifice. But he could taste victory now, could sense the Zorak buckling under the onslaught. They had never faced a foe like humanity before, never known defeat. That ended today. With a final thunderous barrage, the coalition breached the arcology gates and poured inside like an unstoppable flood. Brutal room-to-room fighting ensued, no quarter asked or given. Zorak warriors died by the score, unwilling or unable to contemplate surrender. Finally, blessedly, it was over. The last alien lay twitching in a pool of viscous blood, and the guns fell silent. The colony capital had been retaken. New Hope was free. Soldiers and civilians ran out into the streets, their ragged cheers filling the smoky air. Santos stumbled out of the blasted arcology and collapsed against a piece of rubble, every muscle sore and screaming. But a fierce grin split his face as Jeanlo emerged and sat heavily at his side. They had done it. They had held the line and triumphed against all odds. And now the fallen could rest. Humanity would rebuild, stronger than ever. The galaxy had been put on notice. Honor and remembrance. The great square before the rebuilt New Hope arcology thronged with a vast crowd, a sea of somber faces both human and Veltheri. They had gathered to commemorate victory and sacrifice in equal measure. On a raised dais, Major Eli Santos stood stiffly at attention in his dress uniform, the campaign ribbons on his chest bright splashes of color. At his side, Jeanlo stood equally erect, resplendent in ornate robes of remembrance. Admiral Petrov strode to the podium, her voice crisp and clear as it rang out over the assembly. We are gathered here today to mark the victory won by the courage, sacrifice, and unity of the New Hope defenders, a victory that belongs in equal measure to our own brave soldiers and the noble warriors of the Veltheri. But today we also remember those who gave their lives so that we might stand here now in the light of freedom. Names like Lieutenant Direct Carver, who fell holding the line so his people might live, and Commander Tholan, who died in the last assault so that the Zorak tyranny would die with him. From this day forth, the names of the fallen will be inscribed on this memorial, here in this place of honor. They will never be forgotten, and their sacrifice will stand as an eternal reminder that when the darkness comes, those with the courage to stand and fight can hold the line against any foe. Humanity has been bloodied but not bowed. We will rebuild and come back stronger, and we will carry the fallen in our hearts as we venture out into the stars, always ready to stand firm in the name of freedom and justice. For we have seen now that no matter how dark the night, we are never alone. That when the need is dire, and the cause righteous, we can find allies and hope in the most unexpected of places. So let this day be remembered as a turning point. The Zorak have been driven back, but the fight continues, and the light of human unity and determination will never waver, never dim. For we know now the true strength we possess, and the galaxy will hear our cry forevermore. Oorah. As Admiral Petrov finished her dedication, Santos and Jeanlo stepped forward as one. Reaching out, they gripped a silken cloth and pulled, unveiling the obsidian pillar of the memorial. The crowd looked on in silence as the two commanders made their way along the long list of names etched into the black stone, each an eternal testament of valor. Slowly, reverently, human and Veltheri alike laid tokens of remembrance at the foot of the plinth. Photos, unit patches, scraps of poetry. Finally, Santos and Jeanlo rejoined each other, and an unspoken signal passed between them. As one, they saluted the memorial, the fallen, and the future they had made possible. And as they held the salute, a great cry rose.